Hello, listeners, and welcome to another episode of the Games We Love podcast. I'm your host, Aaron White, and you are listening to the show that promotes positive gaming discussion, featuring interviews and conversations with passionate gamers, including journalists, developers, podcasters, streamers, critics, and other diehard video game fans about a personal favorite game that they love. In this episode, I am joined by the creator and the host of Retro Rewind podcast, Francisco Ruiz. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Hi, Aaron. I'm excited to be here.
Excellent. Well, I am excited to have you here to talk about this game and to get to know you a little bit and hopefully maybe introduce you to some new people who don't know you exist yet. Sounds so,
Whoa.
I was saying that, I was like,
but
man, that sounds really harsh, right?
I could be in the Matrix. I could be just like, someone not like the piece of code going through the Matrix. Hopefully not, though.
I hope not. Well, you know what? Actually, I don't know. I would take the pill, so I'm totally good with the fake world, personally. I know that's not the popular answer, but it's the honest one.
There you go.
Let's get to know you, man. So I always like to start just by going all the way back to the beginning and asking you, where did your journey with gaming start? Like, what console? What was your first game? How did it begin for you?
So do you have those memories from like early childhood, Aaron, where it's like, it's weird. It's almost like an abstract dream. You're not sure if you dreamed it or if it was reality or something like that. Well, I kind of have something like that with this. I didn't know the game name for a long time, but I found out on my stream once, and I looked it up before this. It's the game Outlaw for the Atari 2600. That is, I would say that's probably my first gaming experience. It's essentially, you have two cowboys on either side of the screen, and you're just shooting at each other, trying to like, it's like a quick draw match, essentially. Yeah. And so I have that. That's my earliest memory. I have like one memory of that. That's it. Where I really got started in gaming though was, I think 1986. I remember I was 5. We got the Nintendo Entertainment System. And man, my go-to story for that is I credit the NES and Super Mario Brothers in particular with making me a morning person, because I'm the oldest of 4 boys. So if I wanted time on the system, like just solid time, I had to get up before everyone else, go out to the living room and try to get Mario a little bit further, which I actually never beat that game until years later in my adulthood. But so I went from Outlaw on the Atari 2600 to Super Mario Brothers, and this other game that we got, this top-down helicopter game called Tiger Heli. That's another one, like my first Nintendo game.
I don't remember that one. That doesn't.
It's like if you've ever played, I think the game's 1914 or any like top-down shoot 'em up game. It's
I love
the same
those.
Formula. Yeah, so this was just one on the NES. It had a cool helicopter, I don't know if it's is somewhat like a Cobra. Is that the H1, I think? I don't know. Well, it looked kind of like that on the cover, but of course it didn't look anything that cool in the game. Anyway.
No, not that good.
So that sort of kicked me off as being a Nintendo fanboy for my early childhood into middle school, high school. I also was more into PC gaming then, playing games on Windows DOS and then Windows 3.1, Windows 95. But finally, I didn't like Sega. I thought Sega sucks. It's all about Nintendo and stuff. But then in college, as a graduation present, my parents got me a Dreamcast. I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool. I like this Sega stuff.
Oh yeah.
And, so I was enthralled with like Marvel vs. Capcom 2. I loved playing that game so much. And then I also got into Mac gaming because I had to do Mac for school. So that's the computer I had. But then we sort of cycled back through to the present where now I'm part of the PC master race, as some people like to say, because I built my own computer last year. And I think you're in the process of building a computer, aren't you?
I am still going. Awesome. It's probably going to take the majority of the summer. I'm really slow playing. I'm like buying a part each paycheck.
Yep. That's pretty much how I did it last summer. So I totally get it. And then, now I'm playing back to old Nintendo games is what I'm playing currently.
Now, do you also have a Switch? Have you kept up with Nintendo's consoles?
No, so actually that's an interesting question. My newest gen system is the Nintendo Wii. So I'm not
Like
really
Wii,
keeping up
not
with,
Wii U.
not
the
Wii U,
Wii.
the Wii.
Okay.
The first edition, when it was like, it was hard to find, kept calling my GameStop and say, do you have it now? Do you have it now? They're like, okay, come line up early in the morning and we should have some. And we got it. I say we because me and my wife were married at the time, so we got it then. But yeah, so we have the Wii, don't have a Switch or Wii U or a DS or a 3DS or anything like that. I have a Game Boy Advance and a Game Boy Micro, but I don't have any of the latest systems.
So do you use ROMs, or is there another way you're able to get your PC Nintendo game fix?
So I actually play, and we'll get into this. We might get into this later. I don't know, but I actually play the SNES Classic system. So all the games that are stock on there, and then the NES Classic system, all the games that are stock on there. So that's 50 something games between the two of them. So that's how I play my games. Yeah, I don't use ROMs.
Awesome. That's a great way to do it then. Actually, didn't even know you could stream from them, but I guess that makes sense. They are modern.
Yeah, they're HDMI out, which makes it really convenient. Yes.
Heck yeah, man. Those RGB. Oh, trying to get those plugins. I had an old Nintendo I wanted to hook up to the TV and just wasn't going to happen. Then I tried to pull out my PlayStation 2, the old fat PlayStation 2, not even the slim one, and there's no way to hook them up. You can't do it with modern TVs. Well, that does lead into my next question, which is kind of a little bit about how you game now. What are some of your gaming habits? Obviously, you said you stick pretty much to these Nintendo Classic and SNES Classic, but I don't know, do you play anything else on Steam? What is your style of gaming at this point in your life?
So at this point in my life, it's really a lot of the retro gaming experience. I just, for whatever reason, I have a real big heart for retro games, regardless of the system. I'm very system agnostic at this point. I just want to play awesome games, especially ones that I missed from childhood. But I do play some modern games. I'm on Steam. I'm on GOG, but that's to play older PC games mainly. But yeah, I have Steam. I've played, let's see. I'm trying to think of the more modern games I've played. Awesome Knots, which is like a 3-on-3, not Battle Royale, MOBA. It's a MOBA. I've recently gotten into an MMO called Albion Online. That's fun. So those are, well, I'll go into more of the games I've been playing lately. But yeah, that's pretty much it's retro games and tactical strategy games or real-time strategy games are the things I like to play the most.
So what would you attribute to your love for retro gaming now? This is always fascinating to me. It's one of the reasons I really wanted to have you on is because I knew that this was where your heart was at. And it has not been that way for me personally. And so it fascinates me because for me, when I try to go back and play these games, sometimes it's a struggle. And it doesn't feel as great as I remember them. But it sounds like for you, it is maybe better than playing modern games. So what is it about them that works for you so well?
It's kind of a twofold answer. I think one is a pragmatic and one is more the emotional side of it. The pragmatic side is that for a long time being on a Mac for most of my adulthood, there weren't a lot of great games. Most of the games I'd love to have played were PC only. And with Wii being the last system I got, I wasn't able to really invest a lot of time into more modern gaming experiences. So it was really just a time and financial issue that kept me sort of in the retro sort of cast, I guess, of gaming. But as I was there more and more and being able to sort of increase my library of games, I have older game systems. I have a Sega Saturn that I do minimal collecting for. I have an old PlayStation 1 that I have that actually me and my wife, when we got married, we pooled our games together, which was kind of cool. So I just playing through those games, playing through some of the games I would buy on the Wii when the virtual console was up, the older N64 games and stuff. The reason I think I am so drawn to those more and more is that when I was a kid playing those games, so many of them were just so hard. They were fun and they were cool. And I was always I want to see better graphics. And this has so much better graphics, even though it was just still more, just, I guess from 8-bit to 16-bit was just higher density pixel art. But I still thought those were so cool, and wanted that. But I found that more and more those games and those game mechanics, I have a better understanding of how they work, sort of holistically. And because of that, I'm able to figure them out and enjoy them more, especially the hard ones. It's like, okay, this is hard because of this. And if I just drill on this, I'll be able to accomplish X, Y, Z part of this game. And I like that there's this difficulty curve that I feel like I can overcome. So it's not that they're just easy now, but I feel like I'm able to understand them in a way in that the challenge is something I feel like I can accomplish, but it's still challenging, and I get the satisfaction of overcoming this challenge that I was never able to as a kid, and now I am able to.
That's awesome. I feel like maybe you might enjoy modern day Dark Souls games.
I think so. Like, I was watching you play. What was the game you were playing?
Bloodborne that one time.
Yeah, Bloodborne. I think I could.
That style.
I don't know how well I would do with it. I think we were talking on your stream that I think there's something about going into the 3D dimension where you're having to worry about so many different planes. I mean, they're 3, but
it feels like it's a lot more. Yeah.
Yeah. As opposed to just 2D side scrolling. For the most part, I'm able, especially when, are you familiar with the term, bullet hell?
Oh, yeah.
And okay.
Absolutely.
So games that have that, like one of the modern games that I love to play that's retro styled is Enter the Gungeon.
Ah, yes.
And some of the boss battles, like I've played through I've gotten to the last boss of it, and it just gets nutty sometimes, but there's a quality to it where I'm able to sort of like unfocus my eyes, and I'm able to just like move and not get hit by a lot of the bullets. I mean,
we're back to the Matrix now.
Yeah,
so you're literally in the Matrix. Okay.
Whereas with a 3D, so I'm able to do that on a 2D plane. With 3D, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So I think there's that aspect of it as well.
That's fair. Well, one of the things you do that shows this like desire to have a challenge with these retro games is on your Twitch channel. You are frequently streaming SNS games. So tell me a little bit about how you got started on Twitch gaming and what you're doing right now there.
So I got started on Twitch. I was streaming on YouTube for a bit, and then my brother, he was on Twitch, and like one time I tried Twitch, I went to do what a lot of people do. They go like the streamers on the homepage or wherever, you go in and you see this waterfall of chat, and I saw that. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Peace out, Twitch. I guess I'll go back to YouTube. But my brother convinced me to go back to it, give it another shot. And as I was familiarizing myself with the culture, especially when you go and you watch streamers that don't have a lot of people in chat, can sort of talk to them and really seeing the value of getting to talk with someone who's streaming a game, and it's like, oh, I can connect with them. They actually will respond, and I can get to know someone else. Especially, I've gotten to know people in other countries. I have a friend in Finland that I've met through stream. So that's what sort of got me over on the Twitch wagon, is getting to stream over there. Now, just streaming games, I think that's just something I want to do as sort of an outcropping of this retro movie podcast that I do that we'll talk about in a minute. That's why I think that's how I sort of got started on Twitch, is just playing these old games. And what we do now is on Tuesday nights, I'm trying to beat every game that comes stock on, like I said, the NES Classic system. So far I've beaten Super Mario Brothers, Balloon Fight, which if any of you are like, Balloon Fight can't be beat. It's just you repeat it over and over and over again, try to get a high score. Well, okay, that's true. Essentially what I do is when it's a game like that, I'll look for whatever level, like I'll look online, wherever level or map or enemy combination is the last unique one in the game before it recycles. Once I've beaten that's when I count that type of game as beaten. Anyway,
yeah, that's fair. Once you've experienced all of the content that it has.
Exactly. Now, I'm not a completionist. There are some games where, like, for instance, Super Mario RPG, I didn't do 100% or anything, but I beat the final boss. Anyway, so on Tuesday nights, being two Castlevanias, so going through Nintendo games, then on Saturday nights, I'm playing through all the games that come stock on the Super Nintendo Classic. And there I've been most of the games. I have the two big RPGs left, Secret of Mana and Earthbound, and then a couple of the racing games. But if you come by, when on a night we beat a game, we do a sticker giveaway for that usually is a sticker with the name of the game or my name for a game. So it's like silly names, like for the Kirby Superstar, we called it Kirby Your Appetite. So it's a sticker with that sort of silly name on it.
That's awesome.
Or yeah, so that's something we do when we beat a game on those nights. So that's we also do some podcasting on there on Twitch too, but that's the main gaming stuff we do.
That's awesome. Well, you mentioned this, that it's not just retro games, right? This kind of was born also out of your love for retro movies, and your podcast that we mentioned, Retro Rewind, is all about movies and games sometimes that are 15 plus or years older. So what led to the creation of Retro Rewind? What is your mission statement and how did it come about?
So that game came about because I was doing another podcast at the time. This was back in 2012. I did another podcast. It was actually turning out to be really a lot harder than I thought, because I was doing it on my own pretty much. I would interview guests, and for whatever reason, and props to you, Aaron, for doing this, because I know how hard it is to do a podcast where you're trying to get guests together, trying to book them, trying to arrange timing, and then you think you have one time, they think they have another time, and then the time doesn't work. It's madness. Cats and dogs living together. So I was doing this other podcast, and then at the same time, me and my wife had moved from where we were living in California up to Oregon, where we live now. But back in California was my best friend since college. We were best men at each other's weddings. We were really tight, and I'd lost touch with him. I mean, we'd talk like every 6 months or so, and whenever we would talk, we'd always talk about movies, like the movies we're seeing, what we're excited about. So I'm doing this other podcast. Usually when you start a podcast, you always want to do more podcasts. So I was like, hey, what do you think about doing a podcast where we talk about like movies? And so through a course of us discussing it, we sort of landed on older movies, rewatching them, seeing if they still hold up today. And that's when Retro Rewind podcast was born, with me and my friend Paul J. Powers of pauljpowers.com.
That is wild. I didn't realize how similar our stories were, actually.
Yeah.
That's
you and Patch
crazy.
weren't talking to each other much and decided to do that. The
longtime best friends. We had started chatting again after not really being in touch because we moved different places, and we started talking movies, and then we formed Feel and Film, which is what I'd been doing up until the start of this game podcast. I'm still doing it, of course, but yeah, that's crazy. So why 15 plus years or older? Like, was there a specific reason you guys landed on that?
Well, the 15 years was because we needed to figure out some demarcation for, what's classic? Well, if we choose 20 years at the time, then we would have been limited to mainly 70s. Let's see, 2012. We were in 2012 at the time.
82-ish, yeah.
So 82-ish. So a lot of the movies we wanted to cover to begin with, we wouldn't have been able to. We would have had to wait. Mm-hmm. So we thought 15 years was a decent cutoff. Like 10 years, only a decade, that doesn't really give a movie enough rest. So 15 we thought was a decent enough sweet spot. Or older is because I'm like, well, we're going to run out of movies eventually if we just say 15 years from 2012. So to keep it so that we could always be discussing newer old movies, we said 15 years or older.
That makes perfect sense. Yeah. And, I love it. I'm a big fan. Obviously, I've come on the show a few times and had you on my movie podcast as well. And they're always great double bills when we do those.
Totally.
What are some of your proudest moments for Retro Rewind? And like, what are some of your best episodes? So people listening now, when they go and they, for sure are going to check out Retro Rewind podcast after hearing this. Do you have any favorite movie and or game episodes you could recommend?
That's so hard. I mean, we're at over 200 episodes now, and there was a time where I was re-listening over and over to all like the early episodes just to get better and better and better at. I have long since done that, and so now I'll listen several times just as I'm editing, but I rarely go back and listen again to older ones. So I'm just gonna shout out a couple episodes that these two cool cats, Aaron White and Patrick Hicks, were on. You may be familiar with these guys.
I know that.
They joined us for our episodes covering the 2000s X-Men. There aren't 2000 X-Men. The X-Men that was made in the year 2000. You can find that at retrorewindpodcast.com/111. And they also joined us for this lame Disney movie about a jungle book.
The better of the two.
I don't know. Okay. Wait, between that and X-Men or the two?
No, the better of the two Jungle Book movies.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say I would not.
No. No.
But that was retrorewindpodcast.com/150 where we discussed Disney's animated Jungle Book movie, the original animated, because I know the new one's mainly animated. I think you know what I'm putting down here.
Yeah, I think so. Now, you also did just recently, I want to shout out and say you just covered Final Fantasy VII, if I recall, the original. So that was pretty cool. Do you happen to have any idea what number that was? I guess they can find it if they go check you out.
They can. You can just go to our episodes. We have an episodes link at the top of our website to just scroll through all the episodes. But it was actually episode 199.
Nice. Awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have any remaining goals for the podcast or for your games and your streaming career that is taking off?
I don't know if I'd say it's taking off. That would be the hope that it's taking off.
It's taking off.
Well, thank you, Aaron. My aspiration goal that I've been struggling with, because it's one of these, like, I don't know if you ever had this goal where you're like, I don't want to say it out loud because then you're sort of you almost have to try to live up to it and you don't want to fail it, so you just never say it. But recently I decided, I'm just going to go ahead and start saying that I'm going to have a goal. I don't have a time yet, so that's on me. I need to come up with a time. So, but I want to get to a point where I can take one day less of my 9-to-5 job, so only work 4 days a week on that, and then have this extra day devoted to just content creation, where it's working on the podcast, working on another passion of mine is pixel art, where I create pixel art for the podcast, but also making it for stickers, making Twitch emotes for people. So that's the goal, that whether it's streaming, podcasting, or other avenues of content creation, or selling like my services as a designer, will get me to the point where that is financially feasible.
That's awesome. I like that. That's a really good, strong goal to have. I don't think there's anything wrong with putting that out there into the world and voicing it and going after it. I think you can get there. All right. Well, we're going to move on and talk now about some games. So I want to start here before we get to the big one by asking you, is there anything you have played in, say, maybe the last 6 months or so that has really just been a positive experience for you? So we like to use this as sort of a recommendation for the listeners. Like, what have you been playing that you really enjoyed?
Well, the last two games I played on NES Quest, or Nintendo Quest, that's what I'm calling it. That's what I call it. Were Castlevania 1 and 2. I actually just beat Castlevania for the first time ever. Actually, both these games for the first time ever. I beat Castlevania a few weeks ago, and then Castlevania 2 I just beat this week, actually, at the time we're recording this. So those were really cool, especially Castlevania 2, because that was a game I got when I was 7 or 8. And I said this on stream, but I actually got a strategy guide from the library and used that as a book report because I didn't really like reading growing up. I was like, I'll read a strategy guide. That could be my book report. So I got a strategy guide to help me through Castlevania 2, but I had to return the book before I could finish the game. So it was a cool thing to finally finish this quest I started back when I was 8. So those were two awesome memories that I had recently. And then one more modern game that I'm enjoying is Albion Online, which is a MMO sandbox game. So if you're someone who enjoys MMOs with quests, like your World of Warcrafts or your I think Black Desert Online is like that, or some other ones, then you may not like this because you have to be proactive in what you want to go for, whether you want to be like the best crafter or the best miner or the best just great at PvP. You can really just pick what you want to specialize in and spend your time doing that. And it's just it's a great game to play if you're like listening to podcasts or things like that.
What platform is it on? Is it PC only, or?
I don't know if it's on any consoles. It is on PC through Steam. Okay. I honestly don't recall if it's on any others. I think they do have a mobile version coming in the near future, but for now, I think, yeah, it's mainly on Steam.
And is it older or is it a relatively new? I'm not familiar with it.
I want to say it's like somewhere between 2015 or 2017 it started. So
okay.
It's
typical fantasy new. RPG style, or?
Yeah, pretty much just fantasy. Your swords and shields, magic. You don't pick a class. The armor you pick and the weapons you pick sort of defines what abilities you have. So I'm making this archer that has heavy plate mail. So like I'm good at a distance, but then if they come close, I can survive.
Yeah. So this is what I love about you is you are a very creative person, and it's fun to talk to people that think like you, because there are games that are made specifically like this for people like you who just want to quite literally role play. It's like you're playing Dungeons and Dragons. You're creating a character that's unique. Mm-hmm. Me, I just want to max. I want to min-max, right? So I'm nice. How can I be the best possible thing? Yeah. And it sounds like this is an opportunity. Like you said, it's a sandbox, so you can really play with that. I like games where when you pick something up that you're able to be that class no matter what, even if your skill is low in it. Like it doesn't make sense, like if I'm a warrior and I have a sword and shield, but you won't let me use a bow. Well, I should be able to use a bow. I should just not be good at it,
Yeah. No, Aaron, those bows and arrows, they like burn your hands if you're a warrior. It just knows somehow.
They might if it's a holy bow and I'm like an evil warrior.
All right. Point taken.
That's awesome. Did you have experience in MMOs prior to this one, or is it your first?
No, well, so I was one of those poor unfortunate souls that got World of Warcraft day one and then got my life stolen away from me for about 6 months playing that a good 8 or more hours a day.
Yep. I think lots and lots of us gamers have that same story. There's, WoW Anonymous for us.
Yep. Pretty much.
It definitely did that. And we had to break away and kind of reevaluate our lives and understand this is a hobby and it's ruining the real one. And well, that's cool, man. I hope to hear more about this as you continue to play forward and see how it kind of goes for you. The one that I want to mention that I've talked about recently is actually a platformer that originally came out in 2013 called Rayman Legends. And I had not had any experience with the Rayman series. But this game has been put out on all of the modern consoles since 2013. So it came out on Xbox One, on PS4, on Switch. It's literally everywhere. And I kept seeing it on sale for like the last literally couple years, it feels like. It's just always on sale and people have raved about it, all these really good reviews. And I was looking for something to play new with the kids. I really enjoy platformers, and it felt weird to me that this was a platform series that I just random blind spot, and I don't have a lot of them in this genre. And we realized you could play it, co-op all on the couch, which doesn't happen very much anymore in gaming, unfortunately. More modern day games, it's not something that is a feature that they are focusing on for some reason. And it's all online, and that doesn't work for me with my kids in the room. So we picked it up, and we've had a couple sessions of this game, Francisco, and it is so much fun and so infuriating. First of all, it's gorgeous. It is absolutely gorgeous. Beautiful, beautiful game. And just really whimsical, ridiculous designs for the characters. Usually that's a turnoff for me because I like structure and realism. But these are just, they're anatomically human-like, but they're not human in any sense of the word. Well, there's one character that is, but for the most part, they're not. And you can play as these different characters and you unlock different skins, which is usually like a different colored variant of them. But it is just chock full of content. And so I can understand why it's so highly thought of, because the platforming, for one, is phenomenal. The mechanics of the game, the flow of the game are just excellent. It's very smooth. The jumping is on point, which if you're a platformer, that's really number one, is you've got to have the jumping to be perfect. It's got to be pinpoint and precise. It has some other cool little features where you can interact with the world, and at one point the world will like knock you into the background, camera will, and you'll kind of go on some little side scrolling in the background, and then you'll come back into the foreground. it's really fascinating. And you're collecting things along each level, trying to, unlock the 10 guys in a cage and save them or whatever. And so I like that because it gives me a goal. It's these mini goals, It's like, oh, hey, it's kind of like going back to the Super Mario Brothers days where we grew up on, you and I both, where it's like, hey, I want to beat this stage, but I want to do it and I want to get all of these 5 things. And if I get these 5 things, I feel like I was a success.
Yeah.
And so it's a blast. We've been playing co-op and it's been appropriately both fun and, like I said, infuriating because my son likes to, this game has friendly fire essentially. So you can slap each other. With your big anamorphic, Roger Rabbit-like hand.
Yeah.
And it will actually push the other characters backwards and prevent them from moving and doing the things they want to do. And so my 15-year-old son likes to slap my 17-year-old daughter around and her character, and it just drives her absolutely mad and bonkers. And what bothers me is because I just want to progress. I'm all about let's finish this level, guys. Let's go. And I can't move the screen forward because they're standing in the back and he's like slapping her over and over and over. And I'm like, I just want to collect the stuff and go forward. So,
yeah.
But it's a blast. It is an absolute blast. And if listeners have not checked this one out and you are into platformers, I totally understand now why it's in the 9.5, 9 range on review sites everywhere. It's fantastic. And in the amount of content is unreal. Game has just a plethora of content and some really cool like mini game modes, one where you play soccer.
Nice. Oh, cool.
It's so much fun. And like I said, it's almost always on sale for pretty cheap. So I'm hoping that people will check this one out if they haven't already. And I'm glad that I finally took the plunge and tried it out because it harkens back to that same feel of retro games. So I kind of thought it fit in well with this episode.
Totally.
Well, now that we've gone for a good 30 minutes, let's actually get to the game that we're here to talk about the most. And that is Mega Man X. The old Mega Man X. Now, Mega Man X has been remade and put out as part of the Mega Man X collection. I believe it's called the Legacy Collection, actually, or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's what I got. I don't know. I played it on PS4 because modern games, I tried to modernize my Mega Man X.
Sure.
I will tell you, it looks prettier, but it's the same game. So it didn't help me a lot in the control portion, but that's me. We're not here to talk about what I think about it. You love it. And so I wanted to find out first from you, why do you love it? What is it about Mega Man X? When I said, Francisco, what's one of your favorite games that you would like to talk about? Why'd you pick this one?
Well, I guess I would say it's the pinnacle of the Mega Man formula. There were other Mega Man X games. There's X2 through probably X6, I want to say. I've only ever played X and X2. No, I played X3 as well. I've beaten X and X2. But X was it took the really, really fun formula of Mega Man from the NES where you got to go to any stage. You could, when you got a boss's weapon, you could use it yourself, which was a really cool mechanic at the time. So it took those fun aspects and it just really, they not only improved the graphics, it made those systems work even better because you had also extra abilities, and then the boss's weapons, the Robot Master's weapons would work like you could charge your X-Buster with those abilities, and also the Super X-Buster, I'm totally getting the name wrong. That's not what it's called. But where you charge your X-Buster up to where it's this like pink, like pellet wave, that would work and have special attacks for all the different weapons. I thought that was really cool. There were things like, I remember this in EGM, Electronic Gaming Monthly article, where it said something like, oh yeah, there's even like these lasers that if you like cross them, then the game will shoot at you. It can recognize when you're passing through these lasers. I'm like, whoa, that's so cool, mind blowing. How does the game do that? So there's all these elements from the gameplay, the graphics, the music. It's just so yummy.
So yummy. Okay, that's new. That's a first.
But it's like some awesome beef jerky. You have to work for it. You have to work for that awesome taste.
Now that's a good analogy. Okay, I'll allow that. That's a good way to save that. That's pretty impressive. Well, it's a long-running series. So Mega Man goes all the way back to 1987 on the original NES. And This game was released in 1994 on the SNES, and it featured redesigned graphics and controls from the original series of the game. So, like, what is it about the X series that stands out for you over the regular series? And actually, there's like 50 plus games in the Mega Man series I found out when I was looking. I was like, wow, I had no idea there were so many. So what makes this one stand out over the rest of the franchise?
So, I mean, I sort of said with why I think it stands above the original Mega Man, because it really much takes that formula and sets it to 11. The rest of the X franchise of the ones I've played, it's only like iterative. It doesn't really do much to push the genre forward at all. There's some cool elements, and it's fun to just play new bosses and get new challenges, but there's nothing really like, I would say that's like, wow, groundbreaking about any of the other X's. When it comes to Mega Man Zero, which I played the first one of that's a cool game. It's a different style. It's more of a Metroidvania experience within the Mega Man universe. And I liked it. But if you want just that action-y Mega Man formula, Mega Man X is the way to go. Cause you get some of that with Zero, and you certainly get that with Mega Man, but it's not as fleshed out, I'd say. So that's why, for me, and I've never played Mega Man Battle Network or Mega Man Legends. I don't have a great sense of what those experiences are like, but among the ones I have played, Mega Man X is the top of the line for me.
Well, I can completely see what you're saying, because I did dabble in it and I wanted to get some experience with it before we talked, even though this is definitely not my genre, but I can see the streamlined nature of the play. And so, I remembered these games fondly, and I thought that I used to like them until I tried to play one again. And I realized, like, okay, this is really hard for me. And there's something about the Mega Man formula. It's 8 bosses, and you can go to any one you want at a time. So it's freedom of choice, right?
Yeah.
Which is fascinating for a game like this. And then what I liked about Mega Man X is it felt like that the stages could change how a future stage might interact.
Yeah.
So there's, like you said with Metroidvania on some of the games, it's sort of like that, where you're doing some exploring and you're trying to kind of figure out how the game interacts in itself, which leads to replayability. Yeah. Which makes sense because the game is very short. And so, for me, the difficulty is a hindrance, but you seem to like that challenge. What is it about the way that these bosses are structured? The way that you can get new abilities. Like, what do you like how the game plays, the game flows, the actual mechanics of it?
So what I like about it, and I feel like I sort of alluded to this earlier, but it's almost like it's this really fun action-y puzzle that you have to figure out, like the best way, like you're saying. Some bosses, their weapons affect other bosses. If you go to Spark Mandrill's stage, let's say right off the bat, then there's electricity coming at you on the floor, and you have to be constantly jumping over that. But if you destroy Storm Eagle's like flying jet, or complete his stage first, it actually affects Spark Mandrill's stage to the point where there's blackouts going on, but you don't have to worry about these sparks on the ground as much anymore. And there's just different elements like that, which is another one is if you beat Ice Penguin's stage, then the fire, sort of the lava incinerator at the bottom of Flame Mammoth stage will be not lava. It'll be just rock. You can stand on it and you can get extra items that way. So I like you said, that allows you to open up different areas to get your E-tanks or your hearts to increase your life meter. So just figuring out where all the things are. And there's this one part to get the improved X-Buster. So, oh my gosh, this was such a chore for me growing up. I must have taken a whole afternoon to try to get this thing. So you need this helmet upgrade that allows you to break blocks with your head, which you get in Storm Eagle stage. Then you go to Flame Mammoth stage, and there's this one part, and I want to say we may have looked up a guide for where this was, because I don't think we were finding it on our own, me and my brothers, as we were playing this. But we see there's these blocks overhead that looks like it has like sort of if you break them, you'll open up a shaft. So, but you have to dash leap pixel perfectly from this platform right next to it. Not right next to it, it's pretty far from it. To sort of semi-cling your helmet to these rocks, and once you sort of cling to it, you can sort of just do your wall climb to get up to this section where the X-Buster upgrade is. But just the feeling of accomplishment when I was able to finally do that, it's actually akin to it's funny, it's another Capcom game, but Street Fighter 2, to be able to pull off Ken and Ryu's Dragon Punch, their Shoryuken punch, just to get that with the D-pad in the right order with my thumb just took me so long to do. But once I got it, it just felt so good. You have it locked in. You can you never forget it. And so I think it's that experience of, aha, I got it, or I did it. I worked really hard for this and finally got it. I think that's what is one of the things that really makes the X series, and this one in particular, such a great experience for me.
Yeah.
Did I answer your question?
I think so. Yeah, I would say so. No, I can hear you talk stories about it all day long. It's, we tried it, and I had my kids play with me, and my son doesn't typically get too frustrated with games. Like he'll, get annoyed, but he doesn't quit them. He's kind of determined, and he was ready to throw the controller at this game, like, because we can, and it's fascinating to me. The stages are so short. If you know what you're doing to run through a stage, it can take 2-3 minutes probably to get to a boss. And there's only 8 of them, which is wild. But with the respawning enemies, I think is number one, the biggest challenge that was there for him. Games,
like if you retreat some, then you're gonna have to face the same thing again. Yeah.
Exactly. The moment you let it go off screen at all, and you move back on screen to that part of the map, that enemy will be back. And so you can't just, it's the equivalent of like turtling in an RTS game where you just like build up your base and stay in your own little home and wait for them to come, and then you just boom and you wipe them out on a counterattack. You can't just clear the map, which is what I would do. I would slow play. I would clear the map if I could, and then just work my way to the boss. Very nice and safe. Yeah. Mega Man doesn't allow for that, but it does. Mega Man X does, at least in the Legacy Collection. It has something called Rookie Hunter, which I really appreciate because it's what I like to call baby mode now, because thanks to the What's Good Games podcast. I stole it from them. They call it baby ass baby mode. And it's essentially the concept that, games are meant to be fun. And if it's more fun for you to play it on an easier mode, and that way you get to experience it, you should do that. And that's what I ended up doing, man. And I liked it. I had fun. I got to experience all the bosses without getting enraged. Nice. And yet, for other people, Mega Man is that perfect formula to where if you want that challenge, it's going to give it to you, and it's going to give it to you in various ways. You can go back and replay it and find a new way to challenge yourself, because you could do it in a different order. And therefore, it's going to change the way that the game plays. What about the story of the game? Is there anything about the story that you particularly like the idea of who X is in this game?
So, yes. So this goes back to, I want to say as a Electronic Gaming Monthly, RIP, issue that talked about Mega Man X, where they said he is like a policeman of robots or something like that. And that resonated with me because I have family in law enforcement. So I was like, oh, cool. So I can sort of have that type of experience, but in this fantastic, sci-fi, setting. And so I really like, for X, who I didn't really know much of the story at the time, just like what the EGM article said. And I don't know if I read the instruction manual. I wasn't great about reading instruction manuals until I was well into high school and college. But, this would be back when I was, I think, in middle school still when this came out. But I, learned more about the story recently as we're preparing for this podcast. And it's just cool that, he is created to be he is made to be able to choose peace. And, he ultimately can't because he's drawn into this fight against Sigma, who was originally good, but then Sigma got infected with, I think it's called the Reploid virus. And that caused him to go rogue. And then, Sigma, who's the main final boss in the Mega Man X series. He was originally a Maverick hunter, and Mavericks are the robots that go rogue. And, X was just sort of this rookie. He had his own baby mode, section. But then, Sigma, gets infected by, he has a fight with Zero. Zero sort of is able to be uninfected by this Reploid virus. But Sigma gets it, and that's why he turns bad. And then Zero and Mega Man work together, and you get Mega Man X. But I just really enjoyed that I like games where you're the good guy, and you're just fighting the bad guys. There's something about that. I recently played a game demo called Carrion. Are you familiar with Carrion at all?
Heard about it. Yeah. I haven't played it, but heard about it.
So if you've ever seen, John Carpenter's The Thing, it's kind of like that. You're this alien organism, and you're just trying to kill all the people in this station. And it had its fun elements. I felt that every time I killed a person. I'm like, oh man, why am I doing this? So I'm one of those gamers that I like being the good guy. I like being your paladins and I don't like being the warlocks or the bad. I mean, I know warlocks can be good guys. That's more of a class. But regardless, I like being more of the what's it called in Dungeons and Dragons? Something lawful good or whatever.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
I like that archetype. So X, in that he is that, I was very drawn to him.
That's good. Yeah. I like that. That's a good reason. I enjoy it too. And I think that it's a fun little story. It's got its sci-fi elements of cloning and, robots gone rogue, which is always fun to explore. And I like that these Mavericks are a little bit different than the traditional Mega Man bosses, which were all Mega Men or men / mans, literally, like you were saying.
Like,
and these are kind of really coolly designed animals.
Yeah, totally.
Do you have any favorite boss levels, weapons, abilities, stuff like that?
Well, my favorite boss, like just the boss design, was Spark Mandrill. I love how he's this big clunking mandrill looking thing. I loved his overall design, and he's super easy to beat with the ice shotgun that you get from Ice Penguin. It's he's like the easiest boss, cause just you shoot him, he freezes, you wait for him to unfreeze, you shoot him again, he freezes, and you can't do anything. So it's kind of funny being him, cheesing him in that way. But I love his design. As far as the level, I like Launch Octopus they're robots, but whatever. That level, because it's one of the first games I remember there being sort of a type of destructible environment. So there's this one area, and for the fans of the X series, I know you know this already, but for those that aren't really familiar, there's this one section where most of that stage is underwater. But there's this area when you can like sort of ascend on this whirlpool thing or whirl tornado thing up to the top of the water. And there's this attack boat up there. And if you destroy the attack boat, it sinks and actually destroys the ground wherever it sinks, which opens up this whole area where you can get one of the heart items that increases your life meter. And so I thought that was just a cool element that I had never seen. Like, oh, I can actually change the structure of this level by being at this one area. I mean, I guess you get that with simple things like a Breakout and block breaking games, but this was within an action game, it was completely different for me. So that was cool. And then abilities, I just like that Super X Buster or the Upgrade X Buster. That's just such a good feeling. Like you charge it all up and you just take out an enemy with one shot. It's fantastic.
Oh yeah. Always the best feeling is to get the best weapon in the game and finally get to use it. One thing I always hate is when a game doesn't let you get the best stuff in the game until the very, very end and lets you use it on like a final boss and that's it. Mm-hmm. Because you want to be able to use those tools. Like, games should let you achieve things at least in time to play with them a little bit. Like, let you run through a level with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's fun. Like, let us have fun.
Exactly. Though I will say there is something like that in this game. I'm not sure if you're aware, but both in this and X2, if you get all the items, all the upgrades, have full life, have full energy in all your weapons, in Armored Armadillo stage, you can actually, there's a way to get to another upgrade pod that gives you Ryu's Fireball, and it's cute. You actually hear him say, Hadouken! Hadouken!
No way.
Yeah. The thing with that is, though, they one-shot most enemies, but you have to do the combo of down, forward, shoot button to do it. And so most of the enemies are a little faster than that. And then with bosses, I think I may have one-shot a boss with them, but it's not reliable. Like it doesn't have the buttery smoothness of like Street Fighter. So that's really hard. And then in X2, you get the Dragon Punch upgrade, which actually I found to be a little bit more useful, because usually enemies are jumping over you, so it's easy to do it with that. So that is cool, but yeah, you don't get those until the end of the game. It's just disappointing that it wasn't even cooler, because you had to do a lot of hard work to get that item, and then it's kind of like a letdown when you're trying to use it.
Well, it's cool that it's in there. That sounds awesome.
It is a cool thing to say. Yeah, I got. You're
gonna make me go back and play some more now because I want to find it. Well, the last Mega Man X games that we got were the Legacy collections that I was mentioning. There's a 1 and a 2 version, and they came out in 2018, 2019. The last traditional Mega Man series game was Mega Man 11, and it came out in 2018 as well. So, do you have any desire to see more from this series, or is your retro loving heart content with what exists? And I guess, do you think that there's anywhere that the Mega Man series can actually continue to innovate, or has it done all that it can do in that area?
Well, here's graphically, I would love to see them innovate in a way that so I think I mentioned it before, but I love pixel art. I love the aesthetic, especially of the SNES and Sega Genesis. I know a lot of people are really drawn to the 8-bit aesthetic of the NES and Master System, but for some reason, I think those are fine. But I love the richness of color that you get in the Super Nintendo and the Genesis, and then some of the later more modern games like Marvel vs. Capcom has really great pixel art and sprite graphics. So I would love to see Mega Man X, if they were to continue the series, continue with that style and then incorporate some of the awesome effects that you get like in something like an Octopath Traveler that like blurs the background and has different environment effects. So I would love to see like this awesome pixel art Mega Man X create this amazing looking like laser blast that just like destroys the screen. I would love to see stuff like that. So graphically, I think they could innovate that way. I'm not as huge a fan of 3D looking games, even though like today they look amazing. I feel like they get dated pretty easily as time goes on, as opposed to pixel art games, which I feel like hold their aesthetic better. But in terms of gameplay, I think something that I don't think has ever happened in a Mega Man game is branching endings, or branching paths. You get like, if you destroy one boss level, it affects another level. But actually to see okay, if you go this path, you can get all the items. It's going to take a lot longer. If you go this path, you only have to fight 2 bosses, but it's going to be a lot harder, but you can finish the game faster. Or if you take this path, then I don't know, you get to unlock a new character. I'd like to see something like that where you can, based on what course you choose to play, kind of like Star Fox, how that and Star Fox 64, what path you take dictates what sort of happens in the story. And I'd also like to see something like a co-op experience, like you and Zero get to play together, like I guess like a Rayman Legends.
Yeah.
Except no friendly fire, please.
Zero like chomping at the back of Mega Man.
Something like that, yeah. But I just playing together, I think that'd be a fun, and go back to another couch co-op experience that, like you were saying, we don't get a lot of these days. So I think that'd be fun. But other than that, I don't know if there'd be a way to innovate.
Yeah, no, those are great suggestions. I could definitely see that being a good way for them to go if they wanted to continue pushing it a little bit forward and milking that Mega Man cow.
Right.
Because these games, Capcom's never going to let it die. I don't think. They're going to keep going forever.
Totally.
Well, man, Thank you. This has been awesome. Why don't you tell everybody where they can find your stuff? We've mentioned some of it, but tell them where they can find you on social media, where they can find your podcasting, your Twitch, all the good stuff.
Of course. Yeah, and thank you so much for having me on, Aaron. This was a great experience. Love getting to talk about Mega Man X. I don't think I realized how much I would love talking about it until I got to this opportunity. So thank you so much. If you want to hear more of me and me talking about old movies, I've actually covered Mega Man X on my podcast, Retro Rewind Podcast. You can find that at retrorewindpodcast.com. Episode 5 is when we covered it, so it was really early on. So it's not the best sound quality. Mine is okay, I think, but my co-host was still on his like phone or something. I don't know, but we still had a fun experience. But yeah, check out our over 200 episodes at retrorewindpodcast.com. You can connect with us on Twitter and Instagram and also Facebook, but at Retro Rewind Pod. You can connect with me personally on Twitter. I'm FXR, like capital F, capital X, capital R, Etro, or FX Retro with an underscore. You can connect with me on Twitter there, or you can watch me live stream on Tuesday and Saturday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific or Friday nights at 8 p.m. Pacific at twitch.tv/retrorewindpod, or you could also just go retrorewindpodcast.com/live.
Awesome, man. That's great. Yeah. And definitely listeners, check him out. I got to tell you, his streams are one of a kind. We were talking about this some before we started recording, but they really are. Francisco is an entertainer at heart, and he is able to bring an energy to his podcast, both to his podcast and his Twitch streaming that is not usually found. And it's a ton of fun. So, go to watch him play through the SNES and the NES games and kind of get to see those again, but you'll have just as much fun interacting with him in chat. And
thank you.
And also the great pixel art. I mean, you make amazing emotes, so they're worth going in there to just, throw them a sub, unlock some, then you got them for a while, and you can use them wherever you go. Totally. Well, listeners, if you like what you heard here, please subscribe, share us with your friends, follow us on Twitter and other social media at The Games We Love, or you can find me personally pretty much everywhere on the net and on game systems at Aaron L. White, AARONELWHITE. You can also find my Twitch streaming occasionally at twitch.tv/Aaron L. White. Here on the show, we still have more great conversations coming. Season 1 is not done yet. We've got a handful left, and you're not going to want to miss those. If you are enjoying these episodes, please leave us a 5-star review on your listening platform of choice, especially if that is iTunes/Apple Podcasts/ whatever they're calling it these days, because that's the one that most people see, and it's great to be able to bump up in their aggregator there. And Francisco, again, thank you so much for coming on, talking to me, sharing your passion for Mega Man and games with us. It's been awesome. Thank you, everyone, for listening, because this podcast is for you. We'll be back next week, and until then, get out there and fall in love with a game.